What's going on, guys? My name is Joe Graves, and this is Mastering Business Growth. Running a business can either be amazing or an absolute nightmare. So on this show, I speak with people who are killing it in business, and I find out what it really takes to succeed. If you think you'd be a good guest, then drop me an email at joe@innersound.media. Enjoy the episode. What a way to start the week.
I know. I know, isn't it just?
Yeah, man, yeah. Well, this show's called Mastering Business Growth because I'm trying to master business growth. And I've been talking with people about kind of a broad perspective on things like lead generation, operations. But I think after speaking to you initially about what you do, it's a good opportunity to dive a bit deeper into kind of how you should treat your workforce. So please, can you start by telling us who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. My name's Ken Anderson. I'm the founder of a company called Phoenix Rises, and I run communication workshops in businesses to try and improve productivity, well-being, performance. And so I take skills from a background in policing, such as team working, critical thinking, crisis management, and use those to try and improve workforces.
Love that. So where'd this all start? You say, history's in policing. Take me back to the beginning.
Yeah, I was a police officer for almost 20 years. A chunk of that, I was a firearms officer as well, firearms support officer, which was brilliant, loved it. Then I was involved in a car accident at work. The vehicle that I was in was hit by a stolen vehicle, ended up injuring my back. And I was moved from my frontline role that I loved into an office, and I started to take a bit of a dip. So I thought, all right, I'll navigate my career again. Went into training, started training the new recruits, and working alongside Leeds Trinity University, delivering training packages there. And ultimately, my mental health just kept dipping. No one picked up on it. No one, if they did recognize it, they didn't say anything, they didn't talk. And I ended up taking a week off work. Week turned into 2 weeks, grew. And then in July of last year, I had I don't want to call it a failed suicide attempt, because that sounds like I didn't achieve it. I had a real dip and was attempting to take my life when an old woman, I was at Bempton Cliffs, an old woman just stopped me just as I was about to do it and said, "Are you okay?" And I remember my first thought being, I can't do it in front of her now. Thanks for that. You've messed it all up. I was completely at peace with what I was going to do and how I was going to do it. And it was really surreal. In fact, everything had just gone calm, still. I was at peace. And she stopped me. And I had numerous interventions after that. The crisis team were involved, et cetera, et cetera. And I started really trying to work on my own well-being, get myself into a decent place. As a result, obviously ended up leaving the police and decided, what do I want to do now? I've still got a passion for life, believe it or not. Despite all of that, still got passion. And I love helping people. I've still got the policing part inside of me of wanting to protect people, protect property, and businesses are property, people are within businesses. So I started to hone in on, what am I good at? Communication. That's what I've spent 20 years practicing and honing, working in different teams, different environments, thinking on my feet, being in real high pressure situations in firearms, going to deployments, dealing with some of the nastiest people that you're going to deal with, but having to communicate effectively with them, because in those situations, a failure to communicate is the difference between pulling a trigger and not pulling a trigger. And applying those skills into business, I'm not saying you go in and start shooting your employees and stuff like that, but having those communication skills is so key, and it gets lost a lot in business. And as a result of that, well-being is negatively affected quite often. And so I'm passionate about well-being. I'm very good at communication and understanding the nuances of communication. And so I put those two together and started formulating this business, which I've now started. I'm up, running, and that's where I am today.
Well, that's great. So obviously communication sounds like if there was better communication going on where you were at the time in the police, you think you might have gone down a different path. And so please just connect the dots for me how you think if there was a better culture in what was happening, how maybe less people can end up in a position where they're thinking of taking their life.
For me, it's a lot of businesses are very reactive. There'll be a pothole in the car park, and so they'll put cones around it and a sign up saying, beware of the pothole, you might trip over. Wet floor, we'll put a wet floor sign up. So they're really good at preventing physical harm, and they don't wait for physical harm to happen and then say, right, we'll treat you, we'll put a plaster on it afterwards. They prevent it. But when it comes to well-being, there's not a lot of preventative measures in place within business. A lot of it is reactive. Excuse me. So it will be a case of when somebody does reach a point that they're really crying out for help and going off work or really struggling at work, that's when introductions are made to a mental health first aider or people like that. I found that had someone just spoken to me earlier on, are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. No, are you actually okay? No, things are getting a bit on top. It would have just helped. I'd have been able to offload, because you tend to find that in life and business, you can talk to certain people about certain things. So if you've got relationship issues, it's really hard talking to your partner about those relationship issues. So you've got barriers to communication there. You've got problems at work and with your boss or a colleague. It's really hard opening up those lines of communication to be able to speak to your boss and go, I've got an issue with X, Y, or Z.
When you say it's hard, do you mean just emotionally, like, I don't really know how to communicate, or do you mean are there actual barriers in place? Is it the kind of thing where it maybe feels inappropriate to talk to your boss about that kind of thing?
I think it's both. I think that you've got some practical barriers in place, but you've also got the stigma surrounding it. And communication is one of those things where if you look at any kind of well-being programs that are running at the moment, the general theme about them is it's good to talk, hashtag it's good to talk, or speak up, don't man up, and all that. They're encouraging people to talk. And yet it's all well and good saying, yes, talk, but people don't know how to listen.
Do you know what's amazing? And I hate to cut you up here, but it feels almost like it's become more like a virtue signaling thing as opposed to people actually want people to talk.
Yeah.
Because I've noticed, I can't give an example. I don't know if it'd be right to, but like sometimes even, I don't know if it's just a man thing or what, but if you do talk, people are like, I didn't actually want you to. You know, it's like, I'm just saying you can, so I look good. Have you seen anything like that with your own eyes?
Oh, I experience it quite often because I'm quite open about the path that I've taken. And it's not easy for me to talk about. Genuinely, it's not. I was speaking to someone the other day and they were saying, it's so great listening to you talk and how you come across and the things but inside, I'm extremely anxious about it. Am I going to be judged? What are they going to think of me? Are they only going to engage with me out of sympathy? That's quite a big one that I get. And I don't want that. I don't want people's sympathy. So there is a stigma around it, both for the person that's speaking and the person that's listening. The amount of times that I've spoken, how are you doing? Oh, well, actually, they don't know how to react. They don't know how to, oh, you do actually have something wrong with you. It was just a generic, are you okay?
So it really is like easier said than done to talk about things. And that makes me wonder actually, like how have you managed to kind of harness this problem and communicate it properly and come up with a solution and create a business from it? Can you tell me a bit more about tightening that up as like an idea where you can go and help people?
Yeah, my background in policing helped enormously with this, because when I was in firearms, we quite often, as firearms officers, would view ourselves as the pinnacle of policing. You know, nobody else can do what we can do, which is true to a certain degree. But we couldn't do what we wanted to do without the help and support of others. And so if we were to go to a firearms deployment, we would need divisional officers to come and help with transporting people, families, prisoners, whatever it might be, putting on a scene guard around to give us a sterile area to work in. We'd need police community support officers to come and assist with crowd control. We'd have a dog unit come in to help. We'd have specialist support group. We might have the helicopter. We've got bosses above giving us communications coming down. We're communicating. So there's a lot going on and a lot juggling. But you find that in business as well, where the boss will have an idea or have a vision and a goal, and they will want a team to do it. But it might be that if you're in a business and you've got 2, 3, 5 different teams, some teams might view themselves as more important than others, when in truth, for the business to work, you need to have every team present. So your sales team isn't necessarily better than your customer service team. They might think that they are because they're bringing in the money and all this, and your customer service, they're just appeasing people. But without the two working together, your business is going to suffer. I'm not going to say it's failed, it won't fail, but it will suffer. And imagine how the people in the customer service side feel coming into work and constantly having a sales team go, we're better, we're better, we're better. It's going to be really demoralizing for them. So by taking skills that I've learned and my experiences of working in teams, but with sub-teams and managers as well, I've designed a workshop, or the basis of a workshop, because I try and keep it very bespoke for different businesses, because different businesses have different problems and different needs.
Is it based on a formula, though, where it's fairly rinse and repeat each time, so you know you're hitting certain criteria? Or
no, because to me, communication can't work like that. Mm-hmm. And the benefit of my workshops is, it sounds really awful me saying it, and I almost cringe when I'm saying it, but it's me. I am the facilitator of these workshops. So I could write a brilliant workshop out, great lesson plan, hand it to somebody else. It wouldn't work the same, because to me, the skill and the fine-tuning of getting people to work together comes from my experience, not something that you can write down on a piece of paper and get someone else to deliver.
Well, that makes me think of these workshops. I assume they're like a one-time thing, or are they like continuous and you help people work through? Because like you say, you come in with an idea and you have to analyse the situation to make it bespoke each time. But okay, this is how we're going to deal with this. I assume it's like an ongoing process. It
depends a lot on the business. Some businesses will come in and say, we've got X problem. And I will look at it and go, okay, we'll run a workshop with the staff, run a workshop with the managers. I can give feedback to the managers about what the staff are saying, about what their issues are with communications, where they see the breakdowns are. Likewise with the managers, when they see what breakdowns they've got in communication. I've come up with a methodology called FIRE, which I thought linked in well with the Phoenix and firearms.
Yeah.
And so the first thing in that, the F, is FLARE, which is, we've noticed there's a breakdown in communication here, stop. Let's send up that distress flare, because we're not going to get anywhere. You're just going to, you know what it's like when you start trying to get a point across and someone else isn't listening. Communication's not working. If you continue, you're just going to end up butting heads. So in order to try and reduce that, let's just stop, take a minute and start identifying what the issue is and how it is. I am not an expert in anyone's business, because nobody will know the inner workings of the day-to-day stuff better than the staff, and nobody will know the overarching running of the business better than the managers. So I can't come in and say, I'm going to do a better job than you in this and this. But what I can come in is harness all of the skills that the staff already have and get them having some cultural change, because a lot of communication barriers are down to people not buying into what is happening. Managers come up with a great idea, but if the staff aren't buying into it and they're not all on the same page wanting to push forward, you're not going to go anywhere. There was a great video from Freddie Flintoff presenting a cricket cap to a young player. I've forgotten his name now, but it was his first England cap. And Freddie Flintoff was talking about the England team, how everybody on that team wants you to succeed. Everybody will be there. When we fail together, but we all want to succeed. We all want to win, and we all particularly want you to win and you to win. How many businesses can you think of have an environment like that?
Do you know, it's funny because currently at Innersound, it's just me and my brother Sam. So obviously, I don't think about stuff like that. It's so easy for us to just talk all the time. But I do know, speaking to some of our clients, even some service providers, and just people in general, it does seem like a lot of their stresses come from, my God, no one is on the same team.
Yeah, that is such a common thing. And one of the issues with communication is I'm trying to get across my point, and you're either not listening to it, so there's no active listening going on, or you're not understanding what I'm trying to say because I'm not explaining it well enough. But it's a two-way street. It's not down to one path in particular not working. And so my workshops are designed to get people to understand that, to realise that, be it communication going top down or side to side between teams or within teams, understanding what the barriers are, how to overcome these barriers, and what practical things you can put into place. And it may well be that I go in and I speak to a company or a business, deliver my workshops, and they go, you know what? We're starting to break down some barriers. That's really helpful. Because to me, if you could get a business to just have their staff confident enough to be able to go into the boss's office and say, can I have 10 minutes of your time? I've got an issue I need to raise. They will feel so much happier at work knowing that they can do that. Whereas a lot of the time, you tend to go into your boss's office when you're going to get told off. So there's that stigma around it. So speaking with the bosses, okay, you're doing your reviews. Where do you do your reviews? Oh, they come into my office. Okay. What does your office normally entail? What do you normally do with staff? Well, normally it's a disciplinary thing. Okay, so why not take your reviews elsewhere? Go into the canteen, have a coffee, sit in the corner of a canteen during a break, chat with them, or take them out for a coffee if there's one nearby. Imagine how much more relaxed and personable your staff will be, not just receiving their feedback from their appraisal, but also delivering it back to you as a manager, because you'll come across like a real person as opposed to someone hiding behind a desk. Because even the physical nature of a desk is a barrier sometimes to communication.
So it sounds like obviously this whole idea came from a traumatic experience you had, and that was maybe compounded with other parts of the job. Like you say, we've had clients, friends who have been like paramedics, undertakers, police officers, that whole thing, and I've heard some horror stories. I honestly can't even begin to imagine how that might compound. So I'm curious, obviously that's a key focus of what you do, but it also sounds like you've concluded, and you've seen with your own eyes, that communication gets you an ROI in terms of happy staff, and financially too. So what's the bigger focus for you? Like trying to make sure that people don't end up in a terrible situation emotionally, or is it just the whole, look, this is better for your company, net, it covers everything? How do you communicate with potential clients about this whole thing?
For me, it's a two-pronged approach, because I'm not a motivational speaker, and also I'm not a mental health first aider and professional. Yes, there is an ROI for businesses who can improve their well-being and staff communication through my workshops. The benefits for the staff are, if you enjoy where you're working, not only do you come to work and you're more productive, but when you're speaking to your mates and your mates are down the pub or going out for a walk and, oh, they're really unhappy with their job. Why don't you come and work? Because here we're going to be recruiting soon, we're expanding or whatever it might be. And you start to draw in a better pool of staff and applicants because you're getting this culture change within your business that is, we are a good company to work for. Because that's what a lot of people these days want. They don't look at how the boss speaks to them, or that's not when they're looking at, oh, I'm going to apply for a job, what's the boss like or anything. They look at things like, what are people saying about this business? What is the cultural vibe behind this business? And some of them will be coming out and going, oh, I love working for this company. Look at what they've done. And they post it on social media. You know, worked here for 10 years and look, they've given me a gold-plated watch. Brilliant. That goes all over social media. But is that what the person actually wants? Or is that what the company thinks that they should be doing? And it's about establishing those differences between it.
I mean, at the end of the day, you know, people want a job where they make good money, sure, because that takes care of all your money problems. But at the same time, we all were eternally on a search for meaning. And I couldn't imagine going to work every day being like, this is just to get a salary. I would never be able to do that. You know, like most business owners, you put your neck on the line and you face every hardship financially to do something you care about because it's worth it. So I think we're all seeking for a happy workplace. Get up and be like, I'm excited to continue this quest I'm on. It's have you heard of a guy called Simon Sinek? Yes. There's book he did, Start With Why. Have you read that?
I'm about to start reading it.
It's really good. It's one of the first ones I listened to, and there's is it in the book or is it just a clip I've seen of him? But there's a thing he talks about where there's, you know, two workers. This example he gives where it's like, you know, they're both building a cathedral, I think, and one of them's like, oh my God, the days are long, the sun is hot, and my back hurts, you know, but I'm getting paid. Then there's another one who says, wow, the days are long, the sun's hot, and my back hurts, but I'm building a cathedral. You know what I mean? You want to try and find a way to get people on board with that, where they love what they're doing.
Exactly.
And I imagine with your workshops, and we'll touch in a minute, we'll touch on the actual kind of, you know, how they work, like the actual tangible process. But I imagine that the end result is that you have a workforce of people who are happy, look forward to work, and don't find themselves in a position where they're going as far as thinking about taking their own life.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not on a crusade, a well-being crusade, far from it, because what works for me won't necessarily work for Dave or Sarah or Simon or whoever it is. One thing that I found was that I just needed, for my well-being, an arsenal of tools, so that on any particular day I can dip into my toolbox, my little well-being toolbox, and I can pull out whatever it is that I need to do. And that's taken me a long time to be able to accept, understand, and also practice. I'm still practicing it now. So there's no point in me turning around to a business and saying, if you give your staff some mental health first aiders, everything's going to be better. Because that might not work for some people. You know, if you train people up to be a mental health first aider, but the people that are trained happen to not get on with one of the people that need it, which happens in life. You know, you can't like everyone. Straight away, you've got a barrier there. So as a business, you've invested several £100 training up member of staff, mental health first aider. One person that needs it can't use it. So you've lost money, in effect. And when you start then factoring in things like presenteeism and absenteeism, because absenteeism is really easy to put into figures. Last 365 days, we had 60 days of staff absence. That's great. Okay, you can monetize that in effect, can't you? In your head, you can go, if we can knock it down to 50 days, then we will get X amount of savings. But the real goal for me is to improve presenteeism, because that's when people are at work, but they're just staring at the screen, or they might have had an argument at home, or they've got some money problems going on, or whatever. They're turning up to work, So your absenteeism, you're ticking that box, but they're not working, they're not productive for you. People coming in, how often do you go to work and you're actually quite ill? But you take such pride in being able to say, I haven't had a day off in 9 years.
Me and Sam are like that too. You don't get to be ill when you're self-employed, but
you always have this pride. We used to have it in the police all the time. You'd be so proud of going for such a long period of time without having a day off through sickness. But how productive were you when you weren't 100% and you're at work? And quite often you could come into work on a Monday and you'd be really bunged up with flu, not feeling well, not feeling great, and you're operating at 30, 40%. Then the following day, you may be up to 50, 60, following day 78, and so on. And by the Friday, you're probably back up to 100%. Whereas if you'd have actually felt empowered enough and confident enough to have said, right, I'm going to have 2 days off sick, you'd have come back on the Wednesday at 90 to 100%, Thursday 90 to 100%, and so on. You're actually being more productive through having that time yourself. And it's the same with communication. If I can get staff to, rather than staring at a screen for an hour, going, oh, things are playing on my mind, to feel empowered enough to go and speak to a colleague or the boss or just have 10 minutes themselves to talk things through, think things through, and then go back to work, and they get another 20 minutes of actual productivity. When you break it down financially, the benefits to the company are very high, I'm not going to lie, but the benefits to those people of just feeling self-worth, knowing I can speak to someone, I can get help, that to me is so important, because that prevents you ending up feeling like you can't speak to anyone, that you can't get help, that you are alone, that nobody will understand you, and you get into a place that you can't come back from.
Well, I hear staff turnover is a massive problem across all industries. So I imagine that's one of, I don't know how you'd measure it specifically from what you do, but I imagine if I had various staff here and one of them has a problem at home, argument with the other half or whatever, you would hate for them to bring it into work. And because I know what it's like, if I have problems going on personally, I come to work anyway, because you just do. I'm sitting there going, I can't focus on anything. And I would hope that I'd be the kind of guy where when I've got people working here, they can just tell me, and I can be like, just go on, man, just go sort it.
Yeah.
You would hope that, wouldn't you? So again, like the costs people go through training people up, some jobs, years of training go into it. And if they go, wow, these guys don't care about me at all, I'm leaving. I'm not doing this. Do you find like you have, your clients that have similar problems, and what kind of results are you getting from that? As, people staying at jobs longer?
I mean, staff turnover, for every member of staff that you lose, the average salary, say 30 grand, it's going to cost you 12 to 18 months worth of their salary to replace that member of staff. Because not only do you have the period of time while you're recruiting and going through the interview process and all of this, but you've also got the period of time where it's training your staff back up, getting them to buy into the culture and the ethos of the company and understand it. I hate this term, hit the ground running. Who can do that? Genuinely, who can go into a business and hit the ground running straight away when you're still trying to figure out where the toilet is? I know my desk is here, but, and you start thinking, I need the toilet, but I don't know where it is. I can't hit the ground running because I need to ask for help, but who do I ask? Or who do I speak to? Or where's the photocopier? Where's the fact? Whatever it is. So you cannot hit the ground running in businesses. But what you can do is communicate effectively to ease that transition, which is great. But why not try and reduce the need for that entirely and have a happy, effective workforce that wants to work for you? The police are brilliant in some respects because it's very much passion. People join the police because they want to make a difference. They want to help people. They want to improve people's lives. They want to protect the vulnerable. They want to put bad guys behind bars, all this. So pretty much every police officer joins with that passion, that desire, that common goal. So you end up being able to train a very cohesive group of people, all with common goals. When you get people coming into businesses, bosses should maybe start asking, how can I get this buy-in? Because some people are doing it for the money. They don't care about the goals of the business or whatever. They're doing it for their own personal advancement. So how can you get a buy-in? People want to feel happy. They want to feel content. They want to feel like they're trusted. So my workshops are designed so that they can help facilitate the communication between these bosses into, this is actually where we want the company to go. This is how we'd like to get there. We'd like your buy-in as well, but how are you going to do it? How are you going to help us deliver? Because you listen to your staff. Your staff will know better than anyone. The amount of time bosses in the police were trying to reinvent the wheel. Well, we've got this great new system. We're going to do X, Y, and Z. And people on the ground floor were going, well, we did that 5 years ago. Yeah, but we're calling it something different now.
It's got a new name now.
Yeah, it's got a new mnemonic or whatever. Yeah, but it's still the same thing. It didn't work. Yeah, but trust us, it's going to work this time. And they try and push things through, and it doesn't have that effectiveness. And you lose the buy-in from your staff. So it's really, really important to me that the staff feel valued and they've got self-worth in the job. And the only way to do that is to make them feel listened to. Because if you don't feel listened to, or you don't feel like you can talk, then you're literally just turning up and you're hiding in an office, which is one of the things that I ended up doing.
I got you. So, I mean, this has been a very different chat to what I'm usually having, diving into a very specific area. So let's talk a few tangible things. What kind of clients do you have? And what kind of clients are you looking for? And after that, can you walk me through, let's say you've just signed a new client. Walk me through how it might look for them. What's it like working with you?
Okay. It's quite funny hearing you say that because you've asked like 3 or 4 questions, so I might need to break them back down
I just
again.
let's say someone's thinking I could use this guy. So I think we're having a few cultural problems. Just give people an idea of what it might look like.
Well, the first thing is I've got to speak to the company and I've got to find out what do you see as your problems? Because I can't come in and go, right, here's a blanket communications workshop that I'm going to run for your business. It's going to improve everything. And this will be your tangible ROIs at the end of it. So
you're in there fact finding first, and then you head off for a week or two, or like, what's the deal?
I've got to speak to people. I've got to speak to the managers to find out what they're wanting. That then,
do you ever speak to staff like through all levels as well, and be like, what's really going on here?
That you do, but it depends on what the issue is. So, say for argument's sake that somebody wants me to come into the business because they're going through a change management situation and they are struggling to get the buy-in of the staff. They're wanting to roll out this new program and the staff are quite hesitant to it. They've done their staff feedback survey and staff aren't enjoying it.
Do you know, quick before we go on, do you find different companies at different levels have these problems more so than others? Because I imagine if you got like a company with 10 people or less, that's just not a problem because everyone's very much on a just talking direct to each other basis.
You do tend to find that it's the larger companies that have the communication issues, because if there's 5 or 10 of you and you're working in the same office, generally speaking, the communication barriers that are likely to crop up are very, very minimal.
Like more informal.
A lot more informal. So that actually works better for those companies. Likewise, I've spoken to quite a few businesses who are into website design, things like that. They might have 10 employees, 20 employees who work remotely, but they're used to working with computers. They're used to speaking via emails or Teams and all this kind of stuff. And so actually communication for them is really good. One thing that I found was going from delivering in a classroom environment to then COVID hitting and having to deliver on Teams, communication was so much harder. It was really struggle to be able to get points across when people have got, my camera's not working, or all of a sudden they're on mute for X amount of time. The louder people are communicating and engaging more than the quieter people who are hiding.
I suppose as well, if you're right there in person, if someone's maybe just like views it as like a workshop, like, oh, I have to sit through this, you'll be able to clock them and try and tailor it more to them. Because people need to know what's in it for them to be interested in anything.
Well, that's the thing. And you've got to get the buy-in from the staff. So like I was saying, if the manager comes in and we want to implement this new change, but we're not getting the buy-in from the staff, there'll be a reason why. There'll be a reason why the staff aren't buying into it. I'm not going to name any names, but there was one company who had a big warehouse and the staff were complaining that they weren't allowed to listen to their earphones or AirPods because of health and safety, but doing a 12-hour shift in a warehouse was like really getting to them. And so the managers, without consulting the staff, said, all right, we're going to spend tens of thousands of pounds putting in these big speakers in the warehouse that are all dust-proofed and all this stuff, and we will play music to you, and that will make you happy.
Yeah, fortunately, everyone has the same music taste, right? So
not everyone has the same. And staff were complaining that during a 12-hour shift, by the time they'd heard Ed Sheeran for the umpteenth time, it was driving them insane. And when you actually spoke to the staff, they said, if you'd have spent a couple of £100 just putting some AstroTurf outside so we could have had a 5-minute breather under a canopy with some seating, that would have been so much better for us. That would have made us happy. But there's no communication. So bosses come in to me, say, this is what we want to try and do, but we've got problems with communication. These two teams aren't working together, or the messages aren't getting passed down effectively. So I'll then look at the structure that they've got in place for it all, how it works. And then in the workshops, because they're very bespoke and it's the staff actually open up then about what their barriers to communication are. So it's all well and good, the boss going, here's my version of what I want. They're not buying in. Not very often does it get fed back as to why. So by running a communications workshop, by getting people talking amongst each other, they actually start feeding back really good. I was also going to use the policing term intelligence then, but that's what it is. It's like information and intelligence. They feed that back. And the bosses can then take that and go, I hadn't thought of that. Maybe if I phrased it this way, they would get more buy-in. And generally they do. It's having that understanding rather than just trying to ram an idea down someone's throat, actually getting this cultural buy-in from everyone, because that's what it needs. It needs culture change in a lot of businesses, and that only comes through communication.
And do you ever find that you have to be the messenger for companies, like delivering across the different... or do you not leave until you know, right, these guys are going to talk to people above them about what they need? Do you know the job's done when you know everyone at every level is communicating properly?
I'd love to say yes to that. I think that would be an ideal
What stops you?
situation.
Is it like a budget thing with your clients?
I think sometimes there is the budget thing, but also communication is a really tough one when it's linked in with well-being as well. It takes time. And the best thing that I can do with a business is not have me spoon feed them, because I'm not going to be there all the time. The best thing that I can deliver, which I do try and deliver, is empowering the staff and the managers with the skills that they need to continue it moving forward without me.
And is it obvious when the penny's dropped and people actually, like, you can confidently say, right, these guys, they get it now, I see, rather than...
Oh, 100%. You'll see people that will be really quiet in the classroom or in the workshop, and then towards the end of it, they're actually speaking up and finding their voice and going, in a really structured, good way, getting an opinion across. Because it's not just about shouting loudly or speaking up. It's about thinking how your message is going to be received by that other person and tailoring it to that. Because communication is so nuanced. It's not just one way. It's a two-way thing. It's receiving information and giving information. So by getting people to learn skills such as active listening and about the importance of body language, it's like 80%, 85% of what you say is intonation and things like that. You've got another 10%, which is your body language and how you are, and 5% is the actual words that you're saying.
Oh, it's insane. I love that concept. I'd heard that recently, but it's something I always knew, kind of like on a subconscious level. You know, like when some fraudster, whoever it can be, someone just says the exact right words, and it's like, you did not mean that, and you've got me snookered, you know?
Yeah.
It's awful, isn't it?
And you sometimes find it as well with when you're having a debate with someone. If you're having an argument or a debate, you're not listening to what the other person's saying. You're listening for an opportunity of something that you can argue back with really well.
Waiting for them to drop it.
And as soon as you get it, you go, oh, I can blow them out the water with that thing that they've just said. You don't listen to anything else until there's a gap in the conversation for you to then come back at it.
Well, do you know what?
That's not good.
No, it's not good. And that made me think, like, when I started doing this podcast and I watched the first one back, I immediately thought, I need to get better at talking. So I started looking into it, and a lot of it's kind of subconscious, and it's all about communication. I remember the first thing I read, and it's the only thing I had to read to really kind of sink into this more, and it was, conversations are not about replying or saying the perfect thing in the perfect way. It's about connecting.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it. So you don't have to have the right thing or the best thing to say. You just have to be present there. And a lot of it's just listening.
And a lot of people find that scary, daunting. Like going back to what we said at the start, they find it scary, daunting, and intimidating by somebody saying, I've got this problem. And it can be anything. If through my workshops, if we can empower women who are going through the menopause to be able to say, I know I've got a coat on and a jumper, but can you turn the heating down a bit? Like, what? You don't, but you break down these barriers, these stigmas, and just enable good communication, and it will make the work environment such a better place. Because I read somewhere that one of the next big things that's going to cause businesses a lot of money are losing staff through menopause, because staff are going through it, not being helped, not being supported, not being listened to, and they're either leaving or they're making claims against the businesses themselves. So just breaking down those communication barriers, I feel, is really beneficial. Companies lose so much money each year through staff not being present at work.
Right. So do you know what? There's a couple of things I want to sort of wrap this with. We touched on it earlier, but can you just bullet point a few ways companies can get a positive ROI on introducing your workshops?
Yeah, 100%. If you were to say an average wage, about 30 grand, let's say, and you break that down into an hourly rate, breaks down to about, if they work 240 days a year, including the holidays and all this sort, about £15 an hour. So that breaks down to about, for 10 minutes work, £2.60. So if you could get an employee to be more productive, more beneficial, more focused at work for 10 minutes, that's £2.60. Seems like nothing, doesn't it? £2.60. But you then do that with a workshop of 20 people, and all of a sudden that £2.60 is becoming £260 per week.
That's just if they're off the ball 1 hour.
That's 10 minutes.
Yeah. Oh yeah, 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Sorry, 10
just
minutes.
10 minutes of being more focused, more present, more work, £260 a week.
Yeah.
That then will not just feed on to the people that have done the workshop, but they will be able to help other members of staff, and so on and so forth. And you start building this culture, building this change within, where people can talk, they can feel, right, I'm going to have a 10-minute break. Because you find it all the time when people that used to work in offices and then went remote during COVID, they were so petrified of not being able to be at their computer all the time that some people ended up getting these little mouse twitchers or whatever just to stay online. Whereas if you're actually in the office, right, I'm going for a coffee. Does anyone want one? And you go and spend 10, 15 minutes going off for a coffee.
Like the shame of being like, I need a micro break,
yeah.
Sort of thing.
But then if you're at home and someone sends you a message, oh no, they sent me a message 15 minutes ago, they think I'm not working.
Looks like you're trying to hide something, yeah.
And you're not at all, but it's just that stigma around it. So my workshops are really designed to just break down stigmas surrounding those little nuances of communication. Because once you start doing those on a really minor level, You'll save money later on by the reduction in the need for mental health first aid training, time off sick, presenteeism, absenteeism, all these different things. Because for me, that was my starting point. And everyone that I've spoken to and every charity that you speak to, they always talk about communication. It's good to talk. This is what you need to do. Speak up. So if we target that now, that's preventative. Okay. Mental health first aid training, generally the ROI is about 2 to 1 on that. If you look at proactive measures, such as communication workshops, wellbeing workshops, education, you actually start to get between 5 to 1 and 11 to 1 ROI on that, which is a massive difference.
That is massive.
Because you're getting it early. If you've got a cut on your hand and you ignore it, it then starts to get bigger, infected, worse and worse and worse, and it costs you more money, or it takes longer to actually heal. Whereas if you're dealing with something and someone's a bit annoyed and they deal with it earlier on by good communication, it heals a lot quicker.
Totally off subject, but not really. That reminded me of, is it the guy who was, the guy who found Tutankhamun's, where he was buried? I think he got bit by a mosquito or something and just left it and died, killed him.
I know.
That's it. It's crazy, isn't it, when you leave these things? But there's one more thing I want to ask, just again, for anyone who's thinking, right, maybe not ready for a service or whatever, but I would like to, I'm aware this is a problem. Just a couple of quick fire tips on how, whether more entry-level staff can speak to the boss and vice versa, boss speak to entry-level staff, just for better communication, a better culture across any company.
Well, I was actually speaking to someone the other day about it, and it's almost like podcasts. Recording a video message that the manager would send out to new employees before they started, just on an email, saying, for those that are interested, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the basic things that you need in order to achieve self-actualization, a simple, rather than a big blurb of words, send out a video message to your staff that they can watch 60 seconds, 90 seconds. When you turn up on day one, this is where you'll be able to park. I am so-and-so, I am the manager, this is me. On your first day, when you come into reception, and you can almost walk them through, showing them visually where to come to. How much better would your staff feel turning up on day one, having watched, I recognize the front of the building now, I recognize the reception, and I want to be to the right of the front desk. Then I go upstairs, and that's where I wait, and this is the person that I'm going to be looking for when they walk towards me.
It's like you say too, the whole thing about we do a podcast, we talk about how it scales face to face. And it's that if you know, I've already seen this, like when you meet a famous person, for example, it's like, I already know what to expect from you to a degree.
Yeah.
It'd be the same kind of thing. If you've just had emails from your potential boss, it's like, who am I have to meet? Don't know what they look like, don't know their mannerisms, haven't got a single vibe about them yet. But if you watch the video, you can, a bit. It
100%.
Helps a lot.
But these are just simple little things that can be done. Communication amongst teams, simple little things that you can do. Town hall meetings, but genuine town hall meeting. Once a month, get different people from different departments to come in and have an open conversation. In firearms, we used to do it all the time. After a job, every single job that we went to, we would debrief, and there would be people of all ranks there. And sometimes you'd end up with a very senior officer turning around and going, I want genuine feedback. And they would, as a symbolic thing, take off their epaulets and go, I'm now one of you. We're in the same
just person
shirt.
To person.
Let's hash it out. Let's have some feedback. Let's have a discussion. And that openness to feedback was such an empowering thing for us in the trenches, because we were going, this manager, this boss is on board with us. They do genuinely care. They do want to listen to the feedback, and they are going to make a change. I think it was Ford quite a few years ago, wanted to improve their production line. Don't quote me on it being Ford. It was some business. And so they wanted to speak to the staff and get suggestions, and they put a suggestions box up. And the staff were really hesitant to it. And they were, no one's going to listen. No one's going to do anything. And I think someone had put in a suggestion of can we change our coffee? And so Ford went, okay, let's change your coffee. You said, we listened, we did. All right, okay, well, can we do this then? And they put a suggestion in the following week. Ford went, yeah, you said, we listened, we did. And after a period of time, they went, if we were to move this piece of machinery around to this side, it would actually, oh yeah, it would. We hadn't thought of that. And we've got the space. And it helped because you're listening to the people on the floor level.
People will deal with it the day-to-day.
The day-to-day stuff, because they will empower your business. And imagine coming to work and thinking, I can't wait. I've got this great idea.
Yeah, and my boss listens.
I know that my boss will listen. And it might be that the boss turns around and goes, okay, go off, come up with a business case for it. A good idea. How? How would you implement it? What would you do? The boss can then learn from that, take it on board and give feedback. I'm not saying take everyone's advice and feedback and run with it, but as long as you listen and you're shown to listen, that is so much more to people. So doing those kind of things will really, really empower your staff and make it a better workplace for them.
Couldn't agree more. Right, mate, we'll call it there. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed that.
Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed being on it. A bit nerve-wracking, but I've enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching this episode. Again, if you think you'd be a good guest on the show, then please drop me an email at joe@innersound.media. See you in the next episode.